With its inviting atmosphere, its fresh powdery snow, and idyllic slopes, Ormond was once a small, remote ski town, with the chalet ski resort as the main landmark. But its resort turned obsolete when the deluxe ski village was built on Mount Richards, less than 2 hours away. Mount Ormond is now a soulful, deforested graveyard where gangs of teenagers go looking for trouble. Some people say that the mountain hides a darkness, a bottomless hole from where no one can return. On today's episode of Surviving the Fog, we are going to dive into that darkness and pull out what remains of the totem spawns and where to find them. Now, if you guys want to catch us live, we do stream on Twitch throughout the week. You can check us out on twitch.tv/parkless. And now we'll go ahead and explain a little bit more about what this video is about. For those who don't know what I'm talking about when I say totem spawns, maybe you've never played a game before, or maybe you just haven't cared to think about it. Whenever a map is generated, it has a pool of totems and where their spawn locations are on the map. When the trial starts, it'll pick 5 of those totem spawn locations and randomly place them throughout the map. Now, there can only be 5 totem spawns, but the pool may be much larger. So with this video, we're going to try and help you figure out and show you where all of these totems can possibly spawn. So the next time you find yourself in the Ormond Ski Resort, you won't be left behind trying to pick up the pieces of that Hex Ruin or Hex Undying. So without further ado, let's dive right into Mount Ormond Resort. Now, to make viewing these totems a little bit easier, I'm going to split this video up into 3 sections. There's going to be what I call the outer ring, which are the tiles on the outside edge of the map. There's going to be the inner ring, which is more like 2 sections on either side of the main building, and then finally the main building itself. Now, one curious thing I noticed about while making this video is 2 of the totems seem to spawn on every single map every time. One of those is the hill totem, and the other one is the rock totem in front of the main building, which we'll show you in the inner totem video. So let's get into these, and we'll start with the outer ring. As with most of the maps in Dead by Daylight, we have the obligatory shack. Now, with the map updates come brand new killer shacks, and Mount Ormond is no different. We all know basically where the shack is going to spawn. It's going to spawn in one of the 2 outer indentations of the map. It's always going to be in the outer ring, and the shack totem is always going to spawn in the same place. This totem will be at the pallet in the pallet loop on the inside of the shack to the outer wall next to the boxes. And so here, if you're in the shack, give it a quick look. It's an easy one to find right off the bat. As we move out of the shack and move to our first outer ring totem, this is going to be the 4-lane jungle gym. Some people call it 4-lane. I call it 3-lane because it's obviously 3 lanes. This one is slightly different because of the indentation on one of the outer walls rather than it just being a straight lane like in other maps. This totem is going to be on the inside lane where the lockers are going to be, and down on one of the ends by the locker is going to be the totem in a little cubby right near the end. So go ahead and look for that. Again, not on the pallet side, but it's going to be on the locker side of this jungle gym. Now, with many of the tiles in a lot of these maps, they come in different configuration. Here is another one of the outer 4-lane jungle gyms. It's in a slightly different configuration. You'll notice that it doesn't have the indentation. It looks very similar to a more traditional 4-lane. The totem on this one is once again going to be on the inside of the jungle gym. This one's going to be right next to the inside locker, usually next to a hook or a generator as well. So go to the very central middle lane, and again, right next to the locker in a little cubby. Shouldn't be hard to find. Now, much like in many of the other maps, we have your standard jungle gym tile. The jungle gym tile is notated by usually a generator or a hook, but you have the one window directly in front of one of the entryways, and on the kitty corner or the diagonal corner of that window is going to be your pallet. There's usually a locker on the outside, sometimes on the inside as well, and an opening next to the pallet. Now this totem is going to be in the back corner, usually next to where the hook is, if there is one in this tile. Moving on through the list of jungle gym tiles that are going to be here in Ormond, we have yet another familiar one. This is going to be the long wall, short wall jungle gym, and you'll see this tile in several other maps. The totem here is going to spawn in basically the exact same place. However, one oddity I did find in Ormond that doesn't happen in all the other maps that I've noticed is it'll spawn in this little cubby just before the pallet, right in front of the hook, but it can spawn on the left side or the right alcove. Usually it's just on the left side. Continue with the trend of well-known jungle gym tiles. This is the long wall jungle gym, noted by the long wall that has the window opposite the entryway that has the pallet. This is arguably one of the strongest tiles in the game, and just like every other map, this is going to have one of your totem spawns. Very similar to the standard jungle gym tile, this totem is going to spawn in the back corner, usually where the hook spawns. Sometimes you'll see a generator in this tile as well. So go to the long wall, go to the window, look to the left, and you should see that totem waiting for you. Now, we've seen tiles have different variations, but sometimes you'll see an exact same tile have multiple totem spawns. So in this one, we're looking back at the long wall jungle gym. Once again, the long wall with the window, and then opposite that is going to be your entryway with the pallet. Now this totem is going to actually spawn on the right side of that window instead of the left, right up in the front. This is an oddity for this map, but it's going to be there. Another familiar face is going to be the L wall T wall tile. This is once again on several of the maps, and you should notice it right off the bat because it's going to have two windows that are diagonal from each other, one on a T wall, one on an L wall. This totem, just like in many of the other maps, is going to spawn in the same place. On the T wall, there's going to be two little boxes, and in between them is going to be your totem. Now, one of the oddities that came from the Red Forest Mother's Dwelling map is what's known as the maze tile, and Mount Ormond has them as well. Now this is known as the maze tile because the inner workings are intricately weaved, very confusing, and kind of lead into each other. Now there is a totem in this one, and this totem is actually pretty simple to find. What you're going to do is you're going to go around the outside of the maze tile until you find a cluster of boxes coming out of the corner in kind of a arc pattern. In between those boxes toward the wall is going to be your totem. Now, what would a confusing tile be without having several variations? This is what I'm calling the open maze tile. So it looks very similar to the maze tile. In fact, it kind of looks like the 4-lane as well, but with slight variations. Most importantly, the sharp corners in a couple of the edges instead of just straight up and down lanes. Now there is going to be a totem here, and it's going to be in one of the corners on the outside walls, much like in your long wall or in your jungle gym. Well, not one, not two, but 3 variations of the maze tile exist here on Ormond. This one I classify as an open maze junk tile, because it's a maze tile that's still open in the center. However, it takes down the central walls and instead puts junk related to that map inside the middle of the tile. It has a long wall, and the totem is going to be just like on the long wall to the left of the window that spawns in this tile. As we move further on the outer ring of the totem spawns, we come to another very well-known tile. This is the hill tile. You'll see a tile like this on Coldwind Farms a lot. Now the hill tile hasn't changed. However, as I said toward the beginning of this video, that there are 2 totems that seem to be on every single map. The hill totem is one of the ones that appear most often out of any of the other totems. It's going to be at the top of the hill as soon as you come up on the right. So if you're on a map and you can't find a totem, there's a good chance it's on the hill. Now these next set of totem spawns I'm labeling the outer crossroads tile, because the tile kind of is in a formation with a set of crossroads and usually a plus or an X shape with the kind of objects that are in them. This is a rock one with a pallet loop. Sometimes you'll see a generator or sometimes you'll see a hook. Now this totem is going to be in the crevice of a rock corner that you've seen on maps such as Yamaoka Family Residence. So take a look whenever you're on the outer ring and you see a rock cluster like this. This next crossroads tile is going to be one of the variations I was speaking of. It's very similar to the one before. It has the cluster of rocks. However, you'll notice that there is no pallet. However, you have the hook. That totem is going to be once again in the wedge of that pointed or arrow shaped rock on the inside of the tile. So this will come in different forms and variations, but a lot of times you see a pointed rock, there's possibly a totem there waiting for you. Alright, the next variation of the crossroads tile, once again you see a cluster of rocks that kind of gives it the plus-shaped walkway in between them. This one happens to have a pallet loop. Sometimes you'll see a hook, much like the other one. However, this totem is in a more obvious place. It's in the lower cluster of rocks, not the taller ones with the pallet loop, but you'll see it designated by the two split trees next to that cluster of rocks. Alright, now the final crossroads variation I found here is kind of a combination of the last two, where you have the taller raised rocks, however you also have a pallet loop, and you have one of the rocks that kind of comes to a point or an arrow shape on the interior of the rock. Now this is usually faced towards the outer edge on the big rock in the pallet loop, but there's going to be a totem nestled in there where the point of the rock meets. Now, unlike the jungle gyms here in Ormond, the more open air nature outer ring totems are very similar to each other. These I've started labeling as the outer rock pallet tiles because usually it's on the outer ring, has a lot of rocks, has a pallet as well. This one you'll notice is very similar to stuff that you'll find on McMillan Estate, such as Shelter Woods. You have 3 large rocks, a pallet, a hook, a generator, all right there next to each other. So if you see this kind of configuration, the totem is going to be next to the pallet. Now the next variation of the outer rock pallet tile is going to be this one right here. You'll notice a lot of similarities between several of the ones we've looked at. This is a lower rock formation. There's about 5 or 6 rocks instead of 4. A lot of times there won't be a generator, usually just a hook and a pallet. Now this totem is going to be on the larger rock formation, once again in the indentation made by the point or the arrow shaped rocks right next to the pallet. So the rock formation is similar, just a slightly different tile. Now in this variation of the outer rock pallet tiles is going to be the larger rocks, much like the Crossroads 4-lane, but this is going to have your hook, this is going to have a pallet, and several trees along with it. Now this one's kind of an interesting one in the fact that it is in the larger rock formation on the inside of the tile next to the tree. However, it is not a part of the pallet loop itself, which most of the time you would find the totem in the larger rock of the pallet. So if you see this kind of configuration, don't look toward the pallet, look the tree. Now this one's kind of weird with the outer rock pallet tiles. Everything is there, the hook, the generator, the pallet, the totem, but they're kind of oriented in a way to face outward from the center of the tile, where most of the time you're going to see everything kind of geared towards the center. So this one was strange. Once again, it's not on the pallet loop, it's away from the generator, and it's between 2 trees on a stationary solo rock. So kind of look out for that. Once again, it's going to be on the outer ring. Now this is another one of the more iconic tiles in Mount Ormond Resort, and you might be thinking to yourself, Barkless, you said that there were 2 guaranteed totem spawns. No, this is not it. This one actually only came up once. So this one's kind of a rare one. This is going to be the ski lift house. It's upstairs inside the ski lift house in the corner, right at the entryway. So take a look or not, it's kind of a rare one. Now this next tile is kind of a strange one. You can call it the outer trees tile. I've labeled this as the 2 trees tile. Kind of confusing, I understand. This tile is basically a dead zone with trees and a couple of rocks. Very inconspicuous, and really nothing's here, so it's kind of hard to distinguish. This one has two trees next to a large formation of rocks, and in between those two trees are going to be your totem. If it's lit, super easy to spot. If it's not lit, you probably are going to run past it. So keep an eye out if you can. Now, continuing with the theme of the tree tiles, these next set of tiles is the outer rock tree tile. This has a large amount of trees as well as more of a cluster of large or small rocks. Not usually a pallet, sometimes a hook. So this totem is going to be usually up against one of the smaller rocks that has that kind of arrow pointed shape, much like in the previous tiles. However, it's usually going to be conjoined with one of the trees. So keep a lookout. They tend to be near shack a lot, I've noticed. Now, this first variation of the outer rock tree tiles is very interesting. It has the larger rock formations. It has the 5 rocks, large tree. You sometimes has a generator with it. This one is weird because in most of these rock formations, the totem is going to be nestled in between a point or arrow type formation of rock. This one's more of an obtuse angle, a much wider open rock formation, but it's still going to be kind of tucked away in there next to the rock. All right, as we make our way inward from the outer ring, we start with the inner ring. Like I said, the inner ring is more like just 2 sections on opposite sides of the resort. They're on the long facing sides. There's only a couple of tiles here, but this first one is the long rock in front of the resort itself. This is actually one of the 2 spawns that is basically guaranteed to be here. In every single map I did, this totem was here every single time. It faces inward toward the resort, and it's at that very large rock formation. All right, now this tile is probably was my favorite one to name. It's Inner Snowman. It's an inner tile, and the most defining feature is the very sad snowman. But he's still there. He's pretty big. He's like 6.5 feet tall. So this tile is very obvious because of the ski racks and, you guessed it, the snowman. That's going to be your major looping area. This totem is right next to our favorite guy, Snowman. If you guys have a name for this snowman, put it down in the comments. I couldn't figure out a name, but he's holding your totem. All right, now the next inner ring tile is the inner tables. This is a group of 6 picnic tables that are in a 2-line form, 2 columns. A lot of times you'll have a pallet here, sometimes you won't. The easiest way to tell where the totem is, other than looking at if it's lit, it's in the cluster of snow piles that's kind of supposed to look like a cluster of bushes or other foliage that you've seen on other maps. So just go down the center and look for that big cluster of snow piles. Usually there's going to be a totem there. So keep an eye out if you happen to be outside the resort. Alright, as we're coming to the end of the totem video, we are going to move inward towards the main building, the namesake of the map, the Ormond Ski Resort itself. Now in Ormond there are going to be 2 interior staircases. There's the central one, and then there's the one along the outer wall. Now this totem is going to be upstairs on the outer balcony right at the top of the stairs for the staircase on the outer wall. Again, the interior staircase. As you can see here, it's going to be right outside the door frame as soon as you come up these stairs here. So go on in there right where you can see the fireplace and the baggage, go up the stairs, and as soon as you get to the door frame, take a left, boom, you should see your totem right there. All right, now as we move into the very last totem of Mount Ormond Resort, I just want to thank everybody who has made it this far, first of all, for watching. This is a long video, so I do apologize and appreciate. When making this video, this was kind of strange. In the beginning, I noticed a lot of the same spawns of totems, and then slowly and eventually we got to what I believe is all of them. So this was fun to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Hey, if you like what you saw, a like is appreciated. If you want to see more, make sure you hit the sub button. You guys know how YouTube works. You can comment down below if you think it's just as strange as I did that there are not 1 but 2 guaranteed totem spawns on this map. That's the first time I've ever seen guaranteed totem spawns, so let me know what you think. But this last totem is up the middle staircase, and as you take a right down the long hallway, there's going to be these side rooms on the left Now, just before you get to the pallet, there's going to be a doorway that leads to kind of like a sitting area, a bedroom. This totem is actually going to be in the bedroom. Usually I've only seen it when the wall is blocked off, but it's going to be in the back corner of this upper bedroom. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and stay safe out there in the fog.